Welcome back, everyone. Finally, the time has come to put our knowledge on conditional operators and logical operators into good use and create a program, develop a program that will actually act differently given a user's input. Okay, so to do so, let's go ahead and create a new class under our package called section3_1, and we're going to call this class positivity. Let's do the sensor, right? This class is going to sense how positive our numbers are. Great. Now, let's open up our methods. Let's open up our space within class. Let's define our main method, and let's do this. We're going to make a habit of removing logic from our main method. We're not going to want to keep logic in our main method. In our main method, we're just going to control the flow of our program by calling other methods that we want to use. So let's create a method, public static void, called sensor, and we're going to add an argument to this method that's going to be of type int, and it is going to be, let's call it a number. Okay, open up your method block. You can add your comments, documentation comments here, saying that this method will display whether the number is positive. Okay, I'm just going to keep it simple, but this can be much better. So, but let's keep it for now. This is just a reminder that to make a habit of writing your comments, because these comments will also help you in developing. When you know what you're trying to do, when you have a task, when you have a given task, it's better to put this task here and develop according to that task. Great. Now, let's do this. In English, there are conditional sentences that start with if. For example, if it rains, we will get wet, right? Okay. Or if it is 9 p.m. or later, we will complete our session. And luckily it is 9 p.m. I need to complete this session. All right, now, all this aside, this is what a basic if looks in an English. If it is red light, or if red light turns on, I will stop the car. Okay? Given a certain condition, you will do certain action. The same applies to Java. If number is greater than 0, open your if block. This is a small if block because this is a small method, right? Look at it that way. If number is greater than 0, we will print out this is a positive number. Congratulations. That's it. It is as simple as this. This is a simple English. You're given a task that if a number, this is our task, if a number is greater than 0 or is positive numbers are the numbers that are greater than 0, print this is a positive number. Did you see how simple it was? Now, let's analyze the if block here. Obviously, if block starts with the calling if. Spaces before, after do not matter. Then you have a conditional block here. This is your conditional statement. Something is going to be greater than, less than, or equal to something. This will return a Boolean. So right here, you need to return a Boolean. So Boolean can be either true or false. You can even say, let me cut this. You can even say true. If true, this will always run. This statement will always run. If false, this statement will not run. And if you do false, look at what happens. IDE tells you that this is a dead code. It means this code highlighted with a yellow is not going to be run, because this if block will never be executed because this is going to be false. So you have a condition. If the number that we're going to enter is greater than 0, we're going to print out this is a positive number. So now let's go back to our main method. What we're going to do, we're going to call this method. We're going to call sensor, and we're going to pass in a positive number. For example, 5. We're going to run our program. It will print this is a positive number. Okay, great, perfect. The program does what it is supposed to do. So I'm going to delete these English if conditions. I'm going to just keep my code clean, and I will say that within this block, I'm trying to answer this question. I'm trying to code this challenge that if a number is positive, print this is a positive number. Okay, so now let me do this. What if I add negative? So what if a -5 is being passed in? When I run this code, when I run this program, nothing is being printed out, correct? Reason is we do not have a condition where we check for negative values. So let me ask you a question. If I say from the what's its name example that we gave with red lights, if light turns, light turns red, I will stop the car, correct? Otherwise, or else, unless, or what is the other way? Just else, right? Else, I will continue driving. What does else mean? Else is short for, let me type it here, in this example, else is short for if the light is green, correct? So the light can be either red or green or yellow, right? So there are 3 options. If the light is not red, it is either green or yellow, correct? So in either green or yellow, I'll keep driving. So that's what simple else stands for. Instead of all this wording, since we are developers, since we're programmers, we do not like a lot of wording. Java already has a lot of wording in its code base. We want to keep things simple. We're just going to use else. If the light is red, I will stop the car. Else, I will continue driving. Now, I have good news for you. If conditions in Java also have else branch, acts the same way. You declare it by name. You open your code block for else condition. However, you don't need to put in a condition here, right? There is no need to put in a condition. This, instead of putting any parentheses here and defining a condition, we said that else defines everything else than this condition. In all the other terms, when this condition is not true, so when this is false, when number is not more than 0, we will say this is a negative number. So if the number is not positive, it is probably negative, right? Awesome. So now let's test our code. The first time we ran our code, and we're going to add here a note. We're going to say test values. We tested for 5 as a positive. We're testing it for -5. All right. So -5, when I run this code, this prints out this is a negative number. Great, my code is passing. When I test it for 5, I run it. It prints this is a positive number. Truly, 5 is a positive number, and -5 is a negative number. Simple, correct? Okay. What about another test value? 0. What if I pass here 0? What is going to happen? this is going to say this is a negative number. Okay, now this is not a correct claim. 0 is not a negative number, neither is it a positive number. 0 is 0. Now, how can I fix my code to serve the purpose that when I pass in 0 as an argument, it prints out this is a 0? Now, there are multiple ways of doing it, right? For example, let's forget this code block. You could have simply, you remember, this is our commenting. You could have simply done this. If number is more than 0, print out this is a positive number, right? Now, if number is less than 0, print out this is a negative number. This is simple, right? And you have another if block. If number is equal to 0, double equal to sign, not a single sign, right? We're gonna print out it is a 0. Now, I have 3 if statements. This is perfectly fine. I have 3 if statements because I had 3 test cases. First pass, second will pass, I assume, right? And my third failed when I used if-else block. So let me just create 3 if statements and run this code. When I run this code, let me open up some space so my code is visible. And okay, great. When I run this code and I have a value passed in as 0, it prints out it is a 0. Let me test backwards. This is called retesting. When I pass in -5, run the code. This is a negative number. Great. When I pass in 5, run the code. This is a positive number. Now, we were able to code and complete our task. However, this is not the best way of coding, and eventually this might get out of hand. You might have a ton of if statements. And remember what we said about saving resources and saving and speeding up our runtime when we talked about short circuiting. We said that there is a reason why Java uses short circuit operators, double ampersand and double pipe, to say that if the first condition is not true, not to run for it, not to check for a second condition and return false, or if the first one is true, not to look for the second one and return true. The same applies to our if blocks. So let me do this. Let me put this whole logic in a comment. We can keep it in front of our eyes, saying that this logic works, right? And let's try to code for this logic in such a way that it will be similar to short circuit. So let me delete these comments here because they consume some space. They do not affect our speed, neither our resources, but it consumes the space on the screen. So now, how can I code for this condition where I'm going to say that if the number is equal to 0, print it is a 0? Now, there is one more branch in an if statement, and it is called else if. Okay, so let's do this. Let's continue coding here. Else if. Else if statement allows us to add condition. So what are you going to do if the number is not more than 0? This is false. What other condition are you going to want me to check? What if else if number is less than 0? I'm going to print out this is a negative number. Else, I'm going to continue else here. I'm going to print out it is a 0. Okay, so what's going to happen is instead of having 3 if statements, 3 separate if statements, I'm going to have one if statement, one branched if statement that first is going to check for number being greater than 0. If it's true, it's going to just throw this, right? It's going to display this message. It's not going to check for these. I saved myself 2 additional method runs that I did here, right? I saved myself a speed and I saved myself a stack space. So in the case if number is not greater than 0, I'm going to check if the number is less than 0. If that's the case, I will skip else part. Let's say if that's not the case either, the only else condition here is that the number is going to be equal to 0. So number can be positive, number can be negative, and number can be equal to 0. There is no other value of an int that it can take. I have looked into all the possible options, all the possible varieties of a number. This is called adding condition, adding logic to our programming. So this is going to be the first step. Down the road, we will see variations, nestings of if-else statements, how you can chain them, etc. So I will be looking forward to seeing you in our next video. Please make sure you understand the flow of this if-else statements, if-else statements. Always try to look at it from a simplistic perspective, right? So number can be positive, number can be negative, number can be 0. And always while coding, try to, while coding, understand the task given to you in English before you start coding it. And create some kind of a test values, what you're gonna test for. Create some kind of a pseudocode in your mind. Pseudocode means how can you break this code down, break this task down in English and produce your steps, and then start coding. This is going to be, these steps that I mentioned are going to be important when it comes to coding for conditions, okay? Because you need to beforehand know that if number can be positive, number can be negative, or the number is 0 to be able to code for those conditions. I again thank you for your time, and I will see you in our next video.